From the 809 Restaurant and Lounge in the heart of Inwood, New York City, welcome to Inwood Artworks On Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home in what we affectionately call Upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims, and today we welcome visual artist Len Chichio. Len is an architectural and landscape draftsman who works in colored pencils, pen and ink, oil pastels, and aqua stick oil pastels. Influenced and inspired by Vincent van Gogh's use of strong, vibrant colors, Lionel Feininger's towering architectural forms, and the essential strokes illustrating the works of George O'Keeffe, Len captures Gothic, abstract, and surreal images with lush colors and wonderful design patterns. We are thrilled to have him today as our guest on Inwood Artworks On Air. Welcome, Len.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here. I'm glad I bumped into you at the Inwood Farms for coffee.
You're a regular there.
Everything happens there.
Absolutely. I tell you, from the cafe days to the farm days, I guess, right? Well, we're here at 809, and we're thrilled. There's so many wonderful things to talk about your work. To go further back, we did a installation of your work 3 or 4 years ago in the Heights, of some of your landscapes, projected at the Buddha Taco Bar as part of a lovely series there, illustrating your work over a month.
Right.
And so you, the neat thing about your work I've always enjoyed is that it's representational of the city. And it doesn't take long from looking at your work that you're very passionate about New York City and its architecture.
Yes.
Geometrical design patterns of your drawings take the viewer downtown, above and underground, and all the way up to Washington Heights and Inwood Hill Park, where you actually live. So I'm curious, Len, what began your fascination with capturing our fair city through your work?
Actually, I wasn't doing any of my fine art since high school. And I was working in real estate for many, many years. And a good friend of mine started nudging me to get back into doing my fine art again. And it was like 51 years old, I decided, okay, I got to start doing this. And in my mind, where else could I start was here. It was with Inwood. And I started drawing the subway at 215th Street and just simple geometrics, colored pencils, and doing that. And my whole background is a textile designer with patterns. I worked in home furnishings and in apparel. All of those patterns and designs came into play. And I took the 1 train every day going to work. I took the 8 train. I went up to 181st Street, all the restaurants. The city was always a big part of my life. And I actually loved taking the subways. And I thought, what if I really envisioned this in a different way? What if I took all these patterns and lights and, these designs and really started bringing the city out, and just showing a whole new world. So that's what I'm familiar with. That's what I live with. That's what I love. And that's what all started, what comes out of you naturally, I think, is where you live and the places you love and everything. So that was me, very much part of me.
It's so great to hear you say that because it's so personal. Your work is so personal, and I think as all great art is, it's very personal, even though it may be universal. And that you literally had it in your bones, starting with the 215th Street station, that familiarity, and being literally shaken over and over again, and it comes out, and there's we mentioned all those different influences, like the bright colors, the patterns, the repetition, and how those colors ebb and flow throughout those patterns that repeat. Really, really lovely illustrations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's all there. I think that all I did was bring certain things out, especially like on the subways. I'd be under the 1 train on 215th Street, and I would look at the light. And I'd see how the light would create, blues and oranges and different colors.
And all those girders underneath, right?
Yeah, and then standing right in the middle, having to watch the traffic and just looking at the perspective and just seeing all the patterns that I remembered designing in textiles, all there.
Well, it's wonderful. This is a great segue, how you use the natural surroundings and environment to influence the application of line and color in your work. Let's switch gears slightly to about your landscapes in particular are greatly inspired from Washington Heights Fort Tryon Park and Inwood Hill Park here in
Yes.
northern Manhattan, which is the last natural forest here in NYC, if you didn't know
right.
that, folks. So what is it about their natural beauty that drives you to keep going back to them repeatedly? Because they're very prominent in your landscape work.
Yeah, especially is when I draw the Henry Hudson Bridge, that has so many stories behind it, because the very first time that I did that, and I had an exhibition at the Indian Road Cafe before, one of my friends, his father lived in my building, and he used to take him every day to that exact spot in his wheelchair, and they would spend time there. So when he saw that at the Indian Road Cafe, it hit an emotional chord for him. That was a memory that he had with his father. And somebody else contacted me after that, and they actually, in the 1960s, lived in my building on my floor. And he recognized that spot because as a kid, every day he'd be around there. So I think when I started realizing that the work hit an emotional chord for people and their memories, it hit me that I said, I need to do this more. Besides the fact that I just love, it changes. I mean, Inwood Park changes every day, every season. The water changes, the sky changes. It's like 10 million different versions that just keep coming out at you. And it just calls you, I got to do it again. I got to do it again, because there's more that I'm missing. There's still more I can capture in here that I haven't captured in this one piece. And I have to do it again and again to really explore it.
You said something earlier that you just recalled, and what you just said too is that that confidence, like you said, you started at 51 to explore a career, and then I'm just curious if we can put the button on that, where it's kind of the question of where you felt confident to disembark from the tether of your quote unquote day job, your other industry, another career, right, focusing solely on being a visual artist. Like when, from that 51 to when, and what about that process gave you that confidence to disembark and re-embark on a brand new career?
Well, it kind of pushed me into it, because my boss in real estate sat down with me and told me that they were going to get very, very busy. And she knew I was an artist, and she told me, you're not going to really have much time for your art. And she said, I'll work with you, but what do you want to do? Do you want to continue with the real estate, or do you want to do the art? And my mouth just opened up, and, I said, my art. That was my passion.
Hesitation.
I just knew it. Fear or no fear of like leaving, what you're comfortable with. That was my passion. And it just came out of my mouth like that. So when that happened, other things started moving, and I had the time to do my art full time. I was collecting unemployment, and just different things happened that, God just took care of me and covering me for my finances. But it gave me the time to really focus. And when I had all that time, it just went zoom. I mean, just the professionalism and really getting it tight just happened very quickly. And I didn't have that time working in real estate. It was just so consuming. So for me, this has been like the best time in my life of really exploring what my gifts are. And I think that when you know what your gifts are and you do what you love, things just fall in place. But you got to step out. You just got to give yourself and give God that chance to really work with you,
I love hearing stories of evolution like that, personal evolutions of your craft, and giving yourself permission to disembark and really move forward in a different direction. And listen how happy he is, listeners.
Very
Do you hear
happy.
that?
Yeah.
You hear it in his voice.
I mean, we're creatures of habit,
Yeah.
Things you could be in a stuck cycle and you're used to it, and you'll still continue to be in the stuck cycle, but this pushed me out of that.
Well, let's talk about that push out, but you also, I think because of your background, it opened up other doors for you in particular as an artist, that other artists may or may not have the confidence to explore, because your passion for your art also translates into textile design.
Yes.
Because you can also wear prints of Len's art on silk scarves and cotton scarves, printed on the finest fabrics, I believe, out of Denmark or somewhere else.
Yeah.
And carry them also on tote bags, I believe, and other items. What other things you can use?
I mean, I have greeting cards. I think I had pillowcases on there. I don't know if I took it away, but I think something important that I learned was that there's different markets. I mean, I was going after the high-end market. You know, the people would buy 5,000, 10,000, but it takes time to get there. But there's a whole middle market that's, you know, lower, medium, upper class, and those people may not be able to afford that, but they can afford a $25 tote bag. You know, I can afford a set of greeting cards, or, you know, or a $65 scarf. So I think what I started learning was the business, because the business and the creativity really go together. You need them both. And I never had a really sharp business mind, but I really started learning. I just started pushing myself, and I saw that if I took one step at a time, I learned this, and then I could learn that, and what's the next thing? And you have to always think of, what do I have in my hand now? And then what's the next step? You don't have to go, oh my gosh, you know, you're looking like full time ahead. How can I do all these things? How can I do Instagram and Facebook? And how do I go live? And how do I post? How do I market? It's like, shh, just take it one step at a time and learn. And you learn that, and it grows and it grows. So I think that's been a big change in me too over the years, is learning more about the business. And that's made me more confident in, you know, going live on Instagram and Facebook and exploring all the different mediums that I could do.
Well, you do a great job in getting your name and your work out there.
Thank you.
And like I said, not everyone is confident. That particularly someone who is not we'll say, a millennial or a TikTok generation who has seemingly a surgically attached phone to their hand,
Right.
who grew up with that stuff. Like, you didn't grow up with computers. I didn't
Not at
either, really. So I understand there's a learning curve, and also, but it's just so great that some artists just like, you know, I'm just going to do the gallery scene, or I'm just going to try to do my own shows, or sell through my website, my own prints. But you found a variety of mediums to reach audiences, and I think that's really smart. And I think that helps market your work just by being in different mediums and different forms.
Yeah.
It helps bring an audience and say, oh, you also do canvases? Why, yes, I do.
Right,
Do you,
right.
you also do, wait, you have a photo of this? No, this is actually a drawing. You draw? Yes, of course I do.
Yeah, and it's just getting, you know what, it's just getting to know people. It's all about relationships. And that's why I'm starting to get out now, like at the farmers market on Saturday. People see you, and they see the work, and it connects with the personal, emotional, but it's also just getting to know you. And it's like anything. If I can get to know you and get to trust you and see that you're a real person and you're passionate about your art, and it's not just about, I got to make the money and I got to sell it. It's like, this is what I love doing, and I'm servicing you. How can I service you? How can I meet your needs? Not just all about me. And it works in a reciprocal way. It helps you, but it's also serving people that they can look on their wall and see when they come home at the end of the day, wow, there's the Henry Hudson Bridge. Wow, there's the 215 subway. Now, there's the children's playground. And it actually calms them down, and it gives them a peace, you know. And I think that is such a great satisfaction for me to know that it affects someone's life outside of myself, you know.
Well, Len, I think we've touched all the bases. We've talked about your process, your inspirations, and the execution of getting your work out there. As we close our time together, Len, can you share any new series or projects you're working on?
You see, right now, what I'm working on it's a series of spiral staircases, and just that whole spiral movement in all these different staircases in Manhattan, in London. So again, it's the geometrical patterns with my background in textile design. But I also have some pieces in Inwood where I took some sunsets just like a week ago on 207th Street, and just the architectural of the buildings and the sky with the orange and that blue and just the whole. So I'm going to be working on a series of those sunsets on 207th Street and the spiral staircases. It's always good to work on a few things, because one thing will stimulate the other.
I love it. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Well, Len, thank you so much for taking the time to share your talent and time with us.
Thank you, Aaron.
And where can we send people to find more about your work?
You can see my work on my website, which is www.lchichio, art, ART.com. And you'll see there's landscapes, architectural, geometrical patterns. There are the tote bags, the greeting cards. I'm all there.
Go there now, buy his work. It's wonderful. I own a Len Chichio piece as well, and I gave it to my wife as a gift, I think. Or did we for her? Well, I had to buy one for her.
It was for her.
I gave it, actually, yeah, it was for her.
Well, your sister was it for?
Maybe it was for his sister.
It was for your sister.
I think it was my sister. But my
Yes.
wife and I came to buy
That's
it for
right,
my sister.
to pick.
Yeah, we
because
did.
she gave you the
That's right.
the final touch.
But you had to have the approval, right?
That's right.
I mean, you got to bring in, because she's the real eye for talent, not me. Anyway, Len, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Aaron.
And listeners, you can find the link to Len's work on our website in the description of this episode. So thanks for Len Chichio for joining me on this Artist Spotlight episode of Inwood Artworks On Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home here in Upper Manhattan. If you have a moment, please show us some love right now by rating and reviewing this podcast on Apple Podcasts. That really does help. Many thanks to 809 Restaurant and Lounge here at 112 Dyckman Street in Inwood for hosting us, and to HideSites.com for Uptown promotional support. Be sure to follow us on social media at InwoodArtworks.NYC on our website, and at Inwood Artworks on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to keep up with all that we do, including the Inwood Film Festival, Filmworks Al Fresco, pop-up galleries, live performances, and so much more. You can support Inwood Artworks by making a tax-free donation at our website, InwoodArtworks.NYC/donate. This program is supported by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with City Council. From the top of Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Aaron Sims for Inwood Artworks On Air.